I am Patricia, owner and instructor of Oud Fashion Studio, and this episode is all about dress forms. I'm going to give you the do's and don'ts of purchasing a dress form so that you're able to know what to purchase for your studio. So the first one I'm going to go over is a half scale form. It's not something that you absolutely need, but as a designer, it's kind of nice to be able to work your design on a smaller scale than something larger where you're going to be wasting more material. So what really is the purpose of a half scale form? I'm going to tell you. So a half scale form is great to work out some of your design concepts, like when you're brainstorming ideas and you just kind of want like a quick little run through of what you're thinking. And another great reason to have a half scale form is to work out your pattern design. So if you have a half scale form, you can create half scale pattern slopers. And those are great just to kind of quickly work through your designs. If you have like an idea, you just kind of want to do a quick little pattern drafting and then test it on a half scale instead of going through the whole process and doing it on a full scale like this. That's when it's worth getting one. Also, you get to see your design much quicker, and you can see where you need to either make some changes or eliminate design elements from your design. When you see it in a half scale form, you eliminate a lot of waste. So paper waste, muslin waste, time, which is precious. So doing it in a half scale will kind of get you a quicker result. You get to see your design much quicker. And then if it works out, you can do it on a full scale. Also, I wanted to point out that the half scale form has all the same anchor points as a full form. So you're going to see it's a replica. So everything's going to be the same, including side seams. They have the center front seam, the armholes, everything is exactly the same as a full scale. So it's made so that you can get the most accurate design and pattern making for your creations, just like you would on the full scale form. The next two that I wanted to show you are professional grade dress forms. Now these are the ones you would see in a design studio, a fashion house. If you are a home sewer, you could have one of these. If you are more of an aspiring designer, you want to do more professional type work where it's going to be sold commercially, or you're going to sell in stores, I highly recommend you get one of these. If you're a fashion student, you probably have one, or you should get one so that you learn how to drape on them. These are different than your typical forms that have the dials down the front, because these are made with paper mache. They've gone through a process to be created as a dress form. So you want to make sure that you find one that's covered in linen, 100% linen. They also have all the markings that you need to drape. And if you've been draping and creating patterns, those two go together. When you create your patterns, they have all the markings on them that transfer onto a dress form and vice versa. So these have a center front, they have princess seams, they have a neckline, they have an armhole and a waistline, and you have to mark the hip line. Sometimes they even have the curve on the bottom. So those are all very important when you are draping and creating patterns. It also has to be pinnable. So you have to be able to put a pin in it for draping purposes. And a lot of the ones that you find in the store, like crafting stores, like for example, Joann, they have the knobs down the front. Once you start turning those knobs, it opens up. You lose all your center front seams and a lot of the markings. And they're not as easy to drape on. They're not considered professional dress forms. I'm not saying they're the worst thing you can buy. If you can't afford one of these, which can run a couple $100, sometimes a little bit less if you can find a deal online or through directly from the manufacturer, you can find a great deal. I paid under $200 for this one. It's worth investing in them because if you're going to be draping and doing a lot of professional work, this is what you want to look for. Also, Another feature that you want to look for when you're looking for dress forms, because some of them don't actually have this feature, is the collapsible feature. You push the shoulders in, and the reason you want a collapsible feature is for example, when you're working with fabrics that don't stretch, you want to be able to get it up and off the form, just like you would when you take your own top off. You can move your shoulders, you can rotate in and out of your clothes. So since this is not a real person, the collapsible feature will allow you to remove the clothing off of it, especially when you're working with really fitted garments, fabrics that don't stretch. That's when you want the collapsible feature. Sometimes they're a little bit more, but it's really worth getting the feature. And you also want something that has the cage on the bottom and it has a lever. So the lever allows you to pull it up and down. So when you're working on a design in your studio, your sewing room, you're able to pull it up or push it back down. Also, it can mimic the height of the client that you're working with so that you can get hem lengths. So that's something that you really want to look for as well. This is a size 12. This is a size 8. Size 8 is a standard industry size. So if you plan on making garments for the fashion industry, sample sizes for example, you want a size 8. So when you're looking for a dress form for yourself, go with the size that is the closest to your sizes. You're not going to find one that is perfect. That's just a fact. That's just the way it is. So what you want to do is go slightly below your size, because you can pad these with different paddings and cups, and there's a whole process that you can go through to make it your size. So you always want to go one size below, not too big, because then it's going to be too big and you're just going to take a lot of time to try and adjust your patterns, and you don't want to do that. So make sure you go one size just a little bit below, or the closest you can find to your size. These professional dress forms also come with detachable arms. This one came with a detachable arm. I can take it off. If I'm making something with sleeves and I want to see how it's going to look on somebody, or if I've got the right sleeve length, the right fit, these are great to have. It just comes off. There are some dress forms that have a mechanism inside here that hooks on to the dress form, which is also a nice option. I personally prefer the one that you can just remove right away, so I don't have to keep dealing with trying to unhook it from the dress form. So that's something to look for. I have an extra arm for the size 8 as well that can come off pretty easily. Also, they come with legs. If you're creating something that you have to step into, like pants, then I highly recommend you get the one that has legs. There's some that has one full leg and then a cropped leg. There's also some that have the crotch part and then it has the legs that are cropped out. So think about what you're going to be making, what you're focused more on, and then choose the dress form that you think will be the best for you. I make dresses, so I have the ones without the legs because that's mainly what I use them for. They also make some for children's wear, misses, plus, juniors. There's also for men's. So if you fall into any of those categories, they do make them. They even make them for dogs. So there's everything. If you make maternity wear or make something for a client who's pregnant, they also sell the tummies for them that you can strap to the back, and then it'll give you the tummy up front. So there are different accessories that you can look for depending on what you're making. Okay, so one of the don'ts that you want to keep in mind when you're shopping for a dress form for your studio is you don't want to get a mannequin, you don't want to get a display form, and you don't want to get something that has foam in it. For example, this would be a typical form that I would say to stay away from. I personally have one of these in my studio, not for draping and creating, but the reason I say don't get one of these unless you're going to be displaying your work somewhere. So this is like a retail display form. I do not recommend that you drape on this. This is something that you do not want to get for that. But if you're going to be displaying your work somewhere, then yes. If you're going to go to a trade show, you're going to be showcasing your work somewhere, then this is perfect because it's lightweight and it's made of foam. It does not have the collapsible features. It is not accurate to a typical body. And it also does not have all the anchoring points that this one has. So there are princess seams on here, but they're not accurate to this one. It's not the same. It's not a standard industry form that you would drape on. So if you were to create patterns and then use it on here, put it on fabric and then put it on here, it's not going to fit. It's going to be completely different. So this would be something I would say stay away from unless you are going to be displaying your work somewhere. But it's made of foam. The reason you don't want a foam form is because the foam is going to wear out, and after a while the pins are not going to stay in it, whereas if you pin this one, the pins will stay in it. These will last you for many years if you take care of it. This won't. So there is a big difference. You don't want to get one of these, like I said, unless you're going to be displaying your work somewhere for a purpose. I hope that helped debunking what these were. So they are completely different. If you're going to be doing professional work, you want to go with this one. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of the other forms that you can buy on the market, like the plastic ones and then the ones with the knobs, those are also not going to give you the same results as this one. I'm not saying don't buy them, but just know it's going to be different. I hope those tips were helpful. Make sure you keep in mind all the do's and don'ts so that when you go out and shop for a dress form, you know exactly what to look for. And remember, you want to go with a dress form, a professional dress form that's the closest to your size if you're making clothing for yourself, or if you're making clothing for production or samples, go with a sample size 8. If you like these tips, make sure you like it. Follow this channel. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Oud Fashion Studio, and follow me there where there's lots of other aspiring and dressmakers just like you. If you really like to get a little bit more information on how to shop for forms, jump over to my website and grab the free downloadable on the basics of shopping for a dress form. It's called Dress Forms 101 Buying Guide. So it's a great little downloadable you can get for free. So thanks for watching, and make sure you catch the next episode.